Hey, Talk Universe. Hey, Facebook Live. I am live with my new friend, James Perry. James, welcome to Facebook Live,
Hey, thank you so much.
a place that James probably has never, ever, ever been before. Not.
Maybe a couple times.
Maybe a couple times, sure. I think we've all been here several times. Well, we're about to get ready to start the actual interview. I am looking forward to this, and just want to say for James's fan club, his tribe, his friends, even family, if you're watching this, Facebook is Facebook. That means if we don't pay millions of dollars to spread the viewing, it is hard to see this unless you do one thing, and that's to wiggle your finger over the share button. So you want to wiggle
Right.
your finger over the share button so that we
Hard to
can get
do, but
James's. Yeah, it's real. It's like the creepy kid from The Shining. Just
exercise first, stretch
yeah.
first. You don't want to
Yeah,
strain
don't
yourself.
strain your finger, but you want to
Yeah.
share this. We've got actually, I see Monica here in the green room, and we're going to get to her next. And we've got a couple more people in this segment. So whoever's fan club that you belong to, let's just spread it all out so that we've got four ideas that are changing the world, and they can change the world even more with your help. Enough said on that. James, if I can get a 5 count for you, I'm looking at my levels right now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right. Any questions for me before we hit the record button on the podcast?
I don't think so.
All right. Easy
Happy to
peasy. Well, we are
here.
live here and let me make sure that jamesperryactor.com. I already practiced the bio. How I Stumbled on a Purpose is the title of the show, of the talk. And all right. Yeah, that's, and then the name of the book is I Still Want to Be an Astronaut, Living Your Dream when you dream too much. All right. Got everything right there. And then we are live in 3, 2. We are live with James Perry. James, are you ready to talk?
Oh yeah, I'm ready.
James Perry didn't mean to become an actor, comedian, or YouTube star. But when he decided to take some time away from his real engineering job to goof off over in Studio C, he discovered a fulfilling and meaningful purpose that he had been searching for all along. James is the author of the book, I Still Want to Become an Astronaut, Living Your Dream When You Dream Too Much. James Perry, welcome to the talk.
Thank you.
Your talk is called How I Stumbled on a Purpose. It's one of these great autobiographical talks. You talk about working real hard in all of your fields of endeavor, most recently as an actor. But you ask the question, where can I stand out the most? Please, James, take us behind the talk.
All right, so like you said, I've tried a lot of different things. I have a lot of interests, throughout my life. I've loved math and science and theater and choir and tried sports, gave it a little try there. But anyway, so the talk is about how like I've always wanted to be really good at something, just really master something because I wanted to have a purpose in life and I wanted to do something that was meaningful. And so going out and trying to find that was really stressful because I put a lot of meaning behind it. Like, oh, I need to make sure I'm not wasting any time at all because any minute I waste is gonna be missing in the world of what I could have been doing. And so
that's pretty intense.
Yeah,
that's pretty focused, man.
Yeah, and so I was speaking mostly to people who have a similar feeling of wanting to do good, wanting to have a purpose, but maybe stressing out a little too much about finding that one perfect thing that they can master and just kill it.
Well, Talk Universe, can anybody else relate to this besides me? I'm really glad we're talking today. I mean, there are so many of us. We have so many interests. And then we have this whole, I don't know if it's the soap opera title or what, but the one life to live thing.
Yeah,
and what we miss is being sometimes present in the moment and joyful in the moment. So what's your advice to other people? Like you said, I mean, you dabbled in a whole bunch of things and then you have real serious passions. What's your advice to people that have so many things they're passionate about, but they've got to, at least for the moment or for a period of time, really go after one?
Yeah, so I think the what I discovered in my story, because I studied engineering, like I said, I wanted something that felt practical, that I could really say, oh, I'm doing something good for the world. So engineering made sense, and I liked math and science well enough. But then I was doing comedy on the side to get a break from all of that, and that comedy just I mean, mostly luck, a little bit of really hard work, and was able to actually turn that into a TV show, which became a full time job. And then started getting letters from people, because we do family friendly comedy. So getting letters from people saying, "Hey, in my darkest days, this really brightens my life," or "We can finally watch something that's funny as a family and not worry about, you know, the vulgarity or whatever," right? And
Well,
so,
and let's just hit pause right there, because that's
yeah,
really unusual. That I didn't realize that this was clean, family friendly, I don't, whatever the right word
yeah,
is,
yeah,
comedy.
yeah,
And I mean, it seems to me like that you've got a number of things that you're up against. Maybe it seems like it's easier just to be kind of perceived as edgy, and not have these other boundaries to do that. Yet,
oh yeah.
I mean,
And
I
most
mean, you
comedians,
don't do easy things.
yeah, no, no. Most
Can you
comedians,
speak to that? Yeah.
they just say, "What do I think is funny?" and they do that funny thing. And obviously, if they're good at it, and that works. And our thing was to say, "Hey, we think a lot of stuff is funny. Why don't we just put aside the stuff that is happens to be family friendly?" So it's not a kids show, but it ended up really working for kids and adults, because we're adults. We just wrote what we thought was funny, and we just happened to put out what was family friendly. You know what I'm saying? And
But those
so,
those became guidelines for you. That became
exactly.
part of your brand, so
Yeah.
that mom and dad who are people our age or
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
you can bring the kids in and not have some gross or disgusting, inappropriate, or possibly
Yeah.
sexually violent or other stuff that we all laugh about in a normal situation, which is arguably a little jacked up. So, I mean,
Sure.
how much more difficult is that to you, or is it just part of the brand and it's part of your work ethic and part of the way that you do things? Do you
Yeah,
not see it that way?
I wouldn't say it's more difficult. It's the constraint. I feel like constraint and creativity gives you a guideline, like you're saying, and this just happens to be a constraint that we honed in on, because I went to BYU, which is a religious backed
Mhm.
school,
Brigham
and
Young
so,
University, correct?
yeah, Brigham Young
Yeah.
University. And so the audience at that university prefers to have family friendly stuff. So that's what we made. And it was popular. And so when we kind of pushed it onto TV and eventually onto digital on YouTube, and now we have 2 million subscribers and whatnot,
Two
it's
million.
2 million. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Studio C on YouTube.
Subscribers,
Yeah.
not views,
Oh,
subscribers.
no. No, we got more views than that, which is great. Good stuff. And we've also broken off to make a new thing called JK Studios, which is like more, because that's sketch comedy.
Hmm.
Anyways, I don't want to give everyone too much background, but anyways, it has become just like what we've decided is our brand, and we're expanding now into more than sketch comedy. We're doing working on a sitcom, on a reality TV show, and just because we found that there's this huge void not being filled of comedy that's just funny for funny's sake, but happens to be family friendly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm imagining that you discuss some of these topics of maybe earlier in this interview a little bit more in depth on your book, which is entitled "I Still Want to Be an Astronaut: Living Your
Yeah,
Dream When You Dream Too Much." So,
yeah,
can you give me a real high level, because we're about to pivot over, but could you give me like a 20-second high level overview of what you touch on in the book?
yeah. So in the book, I just go through like what's a better way to look for your purpose in life than to freak out about that one purpose, and it's basically figure out who you are, how you can be genuine, and listen to others, listen to the environment you're in, and collaborate in order to find many purposes in your life.
Well, I love that because it's like, I mean, it's great to have the old straight and narrow if you're talking about, do this or don't do this, or we were discussing being family friendly and raising kids and all of
Yeah.
that. Those boundaries can be really good, but sometimes the constriction when it's up to our direction in life can be a little stifling. And sometimes it's not other people. Sometimes it's just ourselves. And from
Yeah,
one
so it's
engineer
kind of
to a
it's a constant process, and always
Mhm.
be open, always be willing to listen and try new things to figure out who you really are.
Well, we're getting some really good advice from James Perry. And if you like what you're hearing, you're going to hear even more great stuff when we pivot over to UTalk Universe, because we're about to go over to the Blitz round.
All right.
And it's time for the Blitz round. We are here with actor James Perry, and I'm about to ask him a series of either or questions related to the preparation and performance of his recent talk. James, you ready to go?
I think so.
All
Do
right,
it.
first question. Yeah. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I was referred by a friend who spoke the year before.
Nice. Okay. Well, you get up, you're an actor. So the actors always tend to answer this next question a certain way. Are you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender?
Oh man, I memorize first so that I can get into the character and improvise.
See, that's the actor's answer.
Yeah.
Like, every time, every time I've probably had 10 or 15 actors and they say, I memorize and then it comes out of my heart and then it's natural, but you drill down and that's your craft is
Yeah, yeah,
memorizing, internalizing, and then maybe it's the Stanislavski thing. It just kind of comes right out of you. I
yeah,
took an acting
exactly.
class or two, so I can
There
name
you
drop
go.
a little.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I got a point there from James. Everybody, all right. Next question. Other than the Stanislavski method, which we're over talking about, what is besides that a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
For me, it was just getting all of my ideas down on paper, figuring out what I could say, and then combining it, categorizing things, and figuring out what's the main message, and then honing in on something from there.
Now, for your next talk, are you going to keep the same process, or are you going to kind of hone that, tweak that at all, or is that kind of your standard preparation, James?
Well, that preparation actually translated. So, like you said, I wrote a book, and that was just a
Mm-hmm.
massive version of writing a TED talk.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had so much research and so many things to say, and then I categorized it. And so I think probably talks coming up, I will be using other topics from my book, and yeah, and trying to figure out what focus I want to do on that for that particular audience.
Yeah, Talk Universe, it's so important because your talk can easily morph into a book. And the other way around, if you have a good book with great ideas, that can be chopped off to do some really good talks as long as you follow the branded talk formula as James does. So, James, were you an opener? Were you a closer, or were you in between?
I think I was in between.
Any
Just a
advice
year and a
to
half.
in-betweeners?
Any advice?
Any advice? Yeah.
Oh, I mean, for me, I just thought it was fun, and so I just relaxed, went out there, and tried to just connect with the audience, be myself.
James, what was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
Um, I would say, okay, so during my talk, I talked about how I tried to play sports, and I have this funny like thing where I get hit in the head a lot with in sports when I play. And so I was
Oh,
talking about it, and then someone yelled out Scott Sterling, because it was like a reference to a sketch that Studio C had done, and it just threw me off. But I got back on track.
oh, so you got heckled
Yes,
with
I
your
got
with your
heckled.
alter ego from Studio C.
Yeah, exactly.
So this would be the equivalent of Will Ferrell doing a TED talk about being validated, and somebody screams more cowbell or something of that nature.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe someone else in the cast saying
Do you is there a YouTube link for that? We'll put it in the show notes.
For the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it would be
Scott Sterling. Is there like a direct link to that sketch? I'd like to watch it.
If you Google Scott Sterling, you'll find it.
Okay, there you go, folks. Google Scott Sterling. We'll get to find out what James is talking about here. Final question for you, James. This is the cut for time question. So, what was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
Oh man. I don't know. I actually, it's funny because I actually really appreciated the help of editing it down, because I felt like my idea was so broad that it was hard to follow until someone told me, "Hey, this needs to be edited out." And so it was a big relief, because I was hoping to be concise and understandable.
Oh, excellent. So we've been talking with James Perry. His talk is called How I Stumbled on a Purpose, and you can find out more information on James by going to jamesperryactor.com. And if you want to find out more about the book, just add the /book to that, jamesperryactor.com. His talk is called How I Stumbled on the Purpose. You can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We're going to have a link to his website as well as to the talk. And we're going to be back in just a moment, Talk Universe, for the final word of advice. And we're back with James Perry. It is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
All right. So my advice, I guess what it comes down to is more than trying to do what you think you need to do and whatever that one purpose in life is, try to be genuine. And people don't realize how hard this is and how little they are doing it until you really focus on, am I being myself? And then when you do that, you'll go out and you'll find endless opportunities that will give you purpose.
Well, James Perry, thank you so much for coming on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man. Well, let's meet all of our friends here watching in the gallery.
Hi.
And we're gonna look like the Brady Bunch here almost. Here, Molly, we don't have enough room for you here but she's in the green room still. So let's all wave to Molly. Now, Monica, we're going next with you because I understand you have a hard stop. Yes. And right. So we'll get you in and out, well in advance of that. And then Paul and Molly will have you in and out real quick as well. We are making great time today. And let's go around. Paul, please say something. Make sure that I can hear you as well.
I hope you can hear me. What time do you think we might get started? Because I'm just gonna I'm gonna make a quick phone call before then. But in how many minutes?
Yeah, you can mute out, but I'm going next with Monica. Just like with James, we're about 15 minutes on the nose, and that is where I'm aiming to. So
I'll make sure to be here by 3:30 Pacific, no matter what.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good way to do it. So we are broadcasting Facebook Live, and we do have a. This is kind of like the DiCaprio movie about being in the dream inside of the dream inside of the dream. So this is the button for your individual podcast episode we are broadcasting right now, which makes it possible for us to, those of us watching, as I mentioned to James's fan club, I'm going to say this again and again, wiggle your finger over the share button so that we spread these ideas we're spreading. Help Paul, help Monica, help Molly to exponentially spread the impact to change the world faster with the amazing talks that they gave. So, James, you're welcome to stick around, or if you need to go, we understand as well. I'm going to escort you, and I'm going to escort Paul back into the green room. And actually, you know what, James? Let's do this. I'm going to bring you back, and I am going to, because you're our newest talk alumni. So I want you to give some quick advice to Monica and Paul and Molly about having to deal with me for the next few minutes here. Any advice?
Oh, well, my advice would just be to relax, have fun with it, and you know, I don't know. Our talks are much longer than this podcast, so just say a few things and don't worry if not all of it gets said, I guess.
Yeah, it's not a test. It's not, I mean, we're going beyond the talk. We're going behind the talk. It's not, you've already done the prep work. So it's all good. One thing that I sometimes forget to mention, if you want to be part, not those of you watching this, but all the guests, the Talk alumni who have actually come on the podcast with me as guests, if you want to stay connected with one another and with me, a great way to do that is the Facebook Live group or the Facebook group. And I have a policy because it seems like all the other 7 billion people add me to their Facebook group that I don't want to be added to. I don't do that to any of the people that I interview. Okay, I don't know. I mean, the rest of you probably really like when people do that, but I don't do that to people unless they personal friend my profile and ask to be added, and then I'm happy to bring you in there. And that's a great way to stay connected. However, I don't do that for the reasons that I mentioned. So, James, thanks again. Thank you for the extra advice to everyone. And Paul, we're going to see you in a few minutes. And Monica, how are you?
I'm excellent. How are you?
Excellent. I am really doing quite well as well. Thank you for being here. And I can take you next in line because you showed up second. So this is all good. And let's see here. Let's go to your. You can't see this. Hopefully, you can't see this because I'm in my my Excel spreadsheet. So it's the power of awareness, insights into the human potential. Yes. Monica E. as in Elizabeth Reyes. Am I saying Reyes correctly?
Yes.
MonicaEReyes.com is the website. Yes. Your bio you gave me. Monica Reyes is a TEDx speaker, awareness strategist, and attorney, guiding and empowering leaders towards unlocking themselves to their own power through the journey of awareness. And yes. Nice short bio. Thank you very much. To kind of force everybody to make it a little shorter than it normally is. Any questions for me before we jump on here?
Nope. I'm so thankful that I was able to watch James's interview because it gave me context. Yep.
Yeah, this is great. Now, if you can give me a 5 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, our levels are pretty good. Any final questions for me before I hit the button?
Nope.
All right, and for Monica's fan club, like I said, be the creepy kid from The Shining. Wiggle your finger over the share button. Okay, absolutely. If this isn't live, if this isn't live anymore, wiggle your finger over the share button. Okay, comment, share. We've got 4 amazing talks in this segment, and you get to share not 1, not 2, but all 4. On this Facebook Live. So that's really what it's all about. If you put in a comment, I can't acknowledge it when we're recording. However, I will kind of blast it up here on the screen, which is always a lot of fun. So we can do that. Almost forgot to put Monica's name on the screen. Now we have Monica's name on the screen, and it's all good. So we are going to go live in 3, 2. We are live with Monica Reyes. Monica, are you ready to talk?
I am so ready to talk.
Monica Reyes is a TEDx speaker, awareness strategist, and attorney. She guides and empowers leaders towards unlocking themselves to their own power through the journey of awareness. Monica Reyes, welcome to the talk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Your talk is called The Power of Awareness, Insights into the Human Potential. And this was one of these off the chart stories. You're an attorney. You work really hard to become an attorney. I believe you said you were first generation. So congratulations on amazing achievement. And then when you get there, it's almost like the Bono song, I still haven't found what I'm looking for. You made $3.5 million in your firm, and then you leave it behind, or you transition to become more mindful, to learn meditation, and now you're helping hundreds of women through yoga and transformation and meditation. And what a great, amazing tale. So please take us behind the talk.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I never ever intended to be on a stage. I had a huge fear of public speaking. I actually really saw myself as more of an introvert, and I believe I hid behind that law firm for many years. And it wasn't until I hired an executive coach. It was my first successful business, and so we were trying to learn how to fly the plane, put the plane together all at the same time.
In the air. Build the ship at sea.
Exactly. So we hired some professional help. And when we did that is really when I started to recognize that so I had my law firm with 2 other business partners. And so we recognized that we were all wired differently. And I started to, for the first time, look into my strengths. And one of my strengths was this ability to use my voice, something that I had never used before, something that I was afraid of. And so from that point forward, I started to really work at it. And I realized that it was something that I wanted to try.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've got some amazing talents to be able to do what one of my mentors says: jump and build your wings on the way down. And looks like you're able to do that. Sometimes I kind of splat on the sidewalk, I feel, but I mean, different wiring, different strengths. And it's amazing to me because you went through life, you became an attorney, you did all these amazing, unprecedented things. You overcame all kinds of mental barriers and probably identity barriers and surpassed that. Yet you didn't have an awareness of your own strengths. And yet, because of that, you hit a point where you were profoundly unfulfilled. So what can you take us into that moment where you felt unfulfilled and you didn't know why? You felt trapped, actually, in your words. So I wrote that down: afraid of failure, but you felt trapped. What was that moment like for you? And did you feel almost like you were going a little crazy because of all the achievements, and yet you're feeling trapped? What take us behind your mind at that time?
That's exactly right. And that was exactly sort of the mindset. It took me a year to come to the decision, to officially come to the decision. It was a lot of questioning, a lot of duality. Why am I feeling this way? Why am I not passionate? Am I crazy? I have a brand. I have a incredible staff. I have a beautiful culture. We worked really, really hard really hard. I sacrificed. I was a new mom. I sacrificed so much to have this law firm. And then all of a sudden I was like, why am I feeling this way? So that was the result of this particular type of work that I do. I had already started doing this work. I was already practicing Kundalini yoga, which is the yoga of awareness. And that's exactly what it provides you, is it activates this part of your brain called the prefrontal cortex, and it provides you with more awareness. And so I started to become more aware of myself rather than this I have to become something, or this is the success I need, right? And perhaps that was, somebody else's, an old paradigm of mine. Maybe, my mom, I was an athlete my whole life. I was very competitive. My mom pushed me and gave, really helped me create this drive that I have, which I'm very thankful for because it got me to where I wanted to be. But at some point I started to feel exactly what you mentioned, unfulfilled. And then, so I had this law firm. I had a partner who at the time was a single mom. And so I felt very trapped. I could not imagine how I was going to get myself out of that law firm, and also at the same time do this spiritual coach. What the hell is what is even that?
Sounds a little crazy.
It did.
How many staff did you have at that time? I mean, these are people that are counting on you to generate business, to get clients, to do the work. You were helping people. And you were making money and helping people, and that should be a win-win, yet you were still empty. So
when I first started to feel this way, I had a staff of 40.
Wow.
But what ends
40.
up happening is you lose your passion, right? And so as I started to lose my passion, then naturally, the business starts. The business itself is an expression of its partners, of the founders. And so it started to suffer. And in that way, it became harder to bring clients in. I wasn't as excited to bring clients in. I wasn't as excited to promote my business. And so, a year of that, naturally things started to, the business itself actually started to suffer. So it wasn't that $3.5 million, that was at the peak. That was when we were, all in, excited. But, within the year of what am I doing with my life? it dwindled down. And at that point, that really was like, I need to do something here, because if I don't leave, then I'm going to lose everything, right? So I can leave on a high note, or I can continue to be in this world that I don't like. And that's the thing. It's not just the law firm. There's a whole legal world around it, right? You have to deal with other lawyers. You have to deal with the Florida bar. There's a whole legal world, which I just felt that was no longer enough.
Now, there are all kinds of people watching this, or they're watching the replay, or they're listening to the podcast right now, Monica. They're lawyers, they're high-powered, physicians, executives, CEOs, entrepreneurs. There are driven people who maybe had, the kind of, background, upbringing, parenting, that was the kind of direction that helped them rise to the top. Not necessarily an easy background, but an effective background that gave them that heave-ho. And they've taken that and they've kind of ridden that, and they've pulled themselves and bootstrapped themselves. And they're at the top of their game right now. And maybe they're feeling trapped. Maybe they're feeling like exactly the same. I made, gross $3.5 million last year. Or maybe you made $10 million in sales for your firm and you have a nice fat commission check from that, and yet you're feeling trapped, empty, all of those things. What is your advice for them right now, Monica?
My advice to you, if you're listening and you're feeling trapped in this moment, would be to listen to your heart, to ask yourself, so what I started to ask myself was, this is one life, right? We have one life to live. And is this the legacy that I want to live? Can I imagine myself doing this for another year? Can I imagine myself doing this for another day? And I could have continued to do it for until I was 60, but then what, right? I didn't want to wait to be happy tomorrow. I wanted to be happy now. So I ask you, if you're listening, can you wait to be happy now? Or are you willing to stop listening to what the world expects of you, or perhaps people around you expect of you, and instead say, no, this is my life and I'm ready to live it today?
Well, we're enjoying a very fast-paced interview with very intense, wise, and awesome Monica Reyes. And in a moment, we're going to pivot over to BeTheTalk Universe, because we're going to talk about Monica's talk and the way leading up to it in just a moment over in the Blitz Round. And we're back with Monica Reyes. It is time for the Blitz Round. I'm going to ask Monica a series of either-or questions related to her journey to the stage, as well as the preparation that she made. Monica, are you ready?
I'm ready.
First question. Were you invited to speak, or did you apply?
I applied. It was actually the second time that I applied. I was denied the first time.
No kidding. No kidding. Now, I got that one wrong in my Head Talk universe. Sometimes, higher profile people that found law firms that do millions of dollars in revenue, sometimes they get invited. Not what, 1 for 2, I guess. Monica, great persistence. Second question for you. Are you a memorizer, improviser, or a blender?
I'm a blender.
How does that work for you?
So it works great. It's interesting, the TED Talk. So right before the TED Talk, I had a huge conference that I attended, and it was the first time that I memorized. So I see now in hindsight why I didn't get the first TED Talk that I applied for, because I wouldn't have been prepared as I was for this one. So it forced me then, it was a lot easier for me than to memorize, because most of the time I improvise. Like right now, I trust the words that are coming out of my mouth. I'm very connected, but I feel like I wanted to be so impactful and so intentional. And so I really wanted to have those impact statements. And so I blended. I made sure I memorized, and then I allowed little space for myself to improvise in the ways that I need to.
Next question. What's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you prepare?
Tip, tool, or technique, meditation. Huge. I meditated. Also,
why did I even ask? Why did I should have said besides that? But go on.
Right before I got on the stage, I was incredibly nervous. And the biggest part of me that was what I was afraid of was blanking out, right? That was what I was afraid of. So I have this really easy tool that grounds you into the present moment. And it's just basically using your senses. And so I was in the backstage, connecting to sight, connecting to sound, connecting to touch. And then it was time to go.
Hey, what's your advice? I usually don't ask this question because I don't always have an attorney on, but you're used to public speaking, unless you're the kind of legal attorney that does wordsmithing. I would guess you would not be You would not be in the back room wordsmithing. You're doing public speaking. So how did you have to change your normal style to fit into a branded idea-centric short format like a TED style?
So I was the wordsmith. I was
you were.
I was the researcher. I was the one writing. I was never the face.
I got it wrong again, Talk Universe. I'm 0 for 2 here. This is hilarious. Okay. And my next question, this is not blitz round anymore, but how do you grow a firm to 3.5 million when you're the wordsmith instead of the big brash stereotypical person that we think of as a lawyer?
Well, you have a partner that is an amazing speaker and that is an amazing business development. She's like, she has this strength called woo, and that's exactly what it is.
And you don't have this strength. This is really, I'm missing something here. It's hilarious.
Well, I do. We're different. We're different in that she's very social. She can, and she's heavy in sales, very public speaking, but that's what I'm saying. I didn't recognize I had disowned my own strengths, and it wasn't until I started to realize, like, wow, I can do this, and I do this differently, right? So my relationships are deep. It's different. It's strategic. So
hey, we're talking Strength Finder. I love Strength Finder. So give me at least 3 of your top 5. I'm curious.
Intellect, connectedness.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I love the input one. I share that one with you. Why do you think I've done almost 300 episodes of this podcast to this point? Input. All right. Next question. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
So 2 things. But they were really, so we had practiced. The production team that we had was incredible, and they'd really spared no expense in purchasing the equipment. The mics that they bought for whatever reason weren't working the day of. And so at my introduction, the mic wasn't working so much. That was number 1. And number 2, when I looked in the crowd, I saw that my mom and my daughter weren't there. And I had to keep moving forward because, it's my mom. My mom is like one of my biggest fans. I needed her to be there. So, but I kept it moving.
So if you had the chance to do it again, obviously that's beyond your control, the audio stuff. And that's part of, the calculated risk. Yeah. I mean, it's great to get accepted, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have top drawer everything. What could you do differently related to the second piece if you were to do anything different with your family being there versus not being there? And obviously you had it sounds like a little bit of an expectation or maybe an unconscious thing that got triggered. What could you do differently next time?
I don't know that I would do anything different because I like the challenge. I enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the ability, and it makes me feeling more proud that I was able to kick as much butt as I did up there, despite whatever happened. So.
Well, awesome. We've been enjoying this talk with Monica Reyes. And if you enjoyed this podcast interview, her talk is called The Power of Awareness, Insights into the Human Potential. And you can go to our show notes page. We'll have a link where you can check out that talk, or you can type all of that into YouTube if you wish. You can go to BeTheTalk.com, and we will have a link to that. You can also go to Monica's website at Monica E, as in Elizabeth, Monica E. Reyes, Reyes, MonicaEReyes.com, Monica with a C, ereyes.com, and you can connect with her there. And in a moment, we're going to pivot right over to the final word of advice for you, Talk Universe. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe from Monica.
My word of advice for you would be believe that you can. Believe that you can and apply and practice and prepare. But you have a story inside of you, and you have the power to do it. You can do anything.
Monica Reyes, thank you so much for carving out time in your busy schedule to come on the talk and share your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much.
All right, that's a wrap.
Awesome.
Awesome.
All right. Congratulations. We're going to reconnect with Paul and Molly here. I don't know that we got Molly here in the outside of the green room. So Molly is here. She's been here, and it's good to see you. Can you say something, Molly, just so that I know things are working properly when we get to you?
I have been doing things. Now I'm concerned things might not be working.
No, they work.
Okay.
They're working. It's
Okay.
all good.
People can't see me right now, right?
I can see you.
Oh, everyone can see me. Oh, hi, everyone.
Yeah, no, I moved you into the main thing. So
I'll be in my best behavior. Okay.
yeah, we have a limit of 4, and we had James up here before, and you were the last person in the room. So sometimes what I do is I actually put myself in the green room and let everybody else talk. But we're on a little bit of a tighter schedule this evening. I know Monica has a hard stop in a few minutes, so we're going to let you go, Monica. But before we do, any advice to everyone else as our newest talk alumni? What's your advice for Molly and Paul in getting through the next few minutes with me?
Breathe and have fun.
Breathe. That's a good idea.
All right. Very good. Monica, thanks so much. We'll say goodbye and hope to see you in the group, but only if you reach back out to me, and you'll need to friend me on my personal profile for that. Awesome. All right. Well, good deal. Molly, we're going to jump right back on with you in about 15 minutes after we're done with Paul. I saw your note in the chat, and so you've got to friend me in order to be able to.
I'm trying to share this.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I was having a hard time tagging people. The way that this platform works is if I schedule it ahead of time, then I think we're able to use that feature in Facebook. But at the same time, when I do schedule it, then if I don't remember to hit the button within like a couple of minutes, then they yank the whole thing down. So, so there's all kinds of trade-offs and whatnot. So you may need to wait until this whole thing is over. This is just an appeal. This is an appeal from me to all of Molly's friends and Paul's friends. Share this thing when you see it. Let's impact the world with their talk even more. Let's make it go even more viral. You're getting 4 killer world-changing ideas and talks for the price of 1 here today, my friends. So Molly's fan club, Paul's fan club, this is going to rock. So anyway, Molly, we'll see you in just a few minutes. And Paul, how are you, man?
Good, Nathan. How are you doing?
I'm really looking forward to your interview because I don't know if you looked through any of the archives or not, but I had interviewed someone very similar content-wise to you, Bruce Friedrich of the Good Food Institute.
Wonderful guy. Love Bruce.
Yeah. So I had he had a great talk. He comes out on stage. Have you seen his talk?
I have, yeah.
So he comes out with the hamburger that isn't a hamburger. And he starts chomping on that thing, and it was great. But I love your talk because you come out on the stage with a harpoon. So I'm stealing the thunder. I should probably lead the interview with that, but we're gonna get over to that. But this is gonna be nice. I like to do the almost like a wine pairing. It's like a guest pairing. I'm pairing you guys together because it's not. We've got to build a more sustainable future. Even if you like meat, as I will maybe not shamelessly admit to, but no matter what our habits are, there's a future that's emerging, and it's an ethical future, and it's a good future. And Bruce really opened my eyes, didn't turn my eyes on. I'm not a robot, but we got talking about like almond milk and soy milk and some of these almost synthetic, if that's the right word. And he kind of likened what's happening in the meat industry, the protein industry, the plant-based protein industry to, me preferring soy milk for the last 20 years. So that really made it very interesting to me. Let's any questions for me? I'm going to read your bio, practice, all of that stuff. But any questions before I do all that?
No, we're all good. I'm ready to roll. Right. Thanks, Nathan.
Yeah, well, I should probably get my act together here, Paul. It's paul-shapiro.com.
Yes.
is the website. There's a hyphen in there. I don't have my glasses on, but I see a little dot.
Yeah. However, for this particular talk, it might be easier just to say cleanmeat.com.
Oh, cleanmeat.com, not just well, you have Clean Meat Book, Clean Meat.
Oh yeah, both of them work.
Okay.
Both of them work.
Okay.
Either one.
Well, great. We'll put a link to all of them in the notes. But here's what you sent me. Paul Shapiro is the author of the Washington Post bestseller Clean Meat: How Growing Meat Without Animals Will Revolutionize Dinner and the World. The CEO of the Better Meat Company, a 4-time TEDx speaker, and the co-host of the Business for Good podcast. Paul, I interviewed a few hours ago. I interviewed my first 5-timer.
Very nice.
I mean, you got my respect as a 4-timer, man. That you are in an elite club. Very few people that I've interviewed who go beyond the 3-timer around here. So that is awesome. Let's see here. If you can give me a 5 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
We're looking good. So final chance to ask me any questions, and we're going to get committed here in a moment.
Let's commit.
Let's do it. All right. Well, we are live in 3, 2. We are live with Paul Shapiro. Paul, are you ready to talk?
Let's talk, Nathan.
Paul Shapiro is the author of the Washington Post bestseller, Clean Meat: How Growing Meat Without Animals Will Revolutionize Dinner and the World. Paul is the CEO of the Better Meat Company. He is a 4-time TEDx speaker and the co-host of the Business for Good podcast. Paul Shapiro, welcome to this talk.
What a pleasure to be with you, Nathan. Thanks so much.
Your talk is called Clean Meat: The Clean Energy of Food, and you come walking on stage with a giant harpoon and start talking about the whales. It was almost like something out of Moby Dick. And then it's a brilliant analogy because we're not killing whales for lighting or heating oil anymore. So what a great evolution. I'm going to get out of your way. Please, Paul, take us behind the talk.
Oh, that's so nice of you, Nathan. And I don't recommend trying to bring a harpoon on an airplane with you. It is far easier to ship it than to try to bring it with you.
All right. So what happened in TSA?
Yeah,
I'm not letting you go any further than that.
I actually called them to see what the possibility of checking this would be. And it's very oddly shaped. I mean, it's really long. It's hard to even find a box that it would work for it, actually. But it's a real harpoon. This is I used a real, I think it was maybe 7 feet or maybe 8 feet long. It's a real harpoon, maybe about 7 feet. But anyway, this was, and I got it for the sole purpose of this talk. I didn't order a fake harpoon or a decorative harpoon. It's a real harpoon. And basically, what I ended up doing was at the time, my girlfriend was living in California. Well, she still is, but now I live in California also. And I shipped it to her house, and then we drove with it. And so we had to drive with this very long harpoon sticking out of the car. It was very funny. But the purpose of this harpoon is to illustrate the following. That if you were to rewind the clock by 150 years, most likely you would have a lamp in your home that was lit by whale oil. Mm-hmm. Whaling was a huge part of the American economy, and there was a big industry that was all about going out hunting and shooting whales. Well, today we still have a big industry in America that goes out and shoots whales, but you shoot them with cameras, not with harpoons. And they would have thought that was crazy back then to say that Americans would pay to get on a boat for the mere purpose of seeing a whale. I mean, they couldn't even imagine that. And so how did that happen? There were real concerns in the 19th century about the sustainability of whaling, about extinction of various whale species, but it wasn't concerns about whales that liberated whales from harpoons. It was the invention of a superior method of lighting our homes, kerosene. So similarly, today we have all types of sustainability concerns about the way we feed ourselves with protein, mainly that producing meat is a giant contributor to greenhouse gas emissions, to deforestation, to air, water, and soil pollution, and more. And if we want to get serious about protecting the planet, we need to be serious about looking at how we feed ourselves, because meat eating is a very resource inefficient way to do it. But what if we could have our meat and eat it too? What if we could produce real meat without all the downsides? What if, in the same way that kerosene displaced whaling, we could have another way to feed ourselves with actual meat that we want, but without so many downsides? And that's what clean meat is about. Producing clean meat it's not an alternative to meat. We're not talking about veggie burgers here. We're talking about real meat grown from animal cells outside of the animal's body. So producing real actual meat that is the same as the meat that people eat today, except you don't have to raise and slaughter animals. You don't have to slash and burn rainforests to grow the crops or the pasture land to feed these animals. You just don't need nearly as many resources as it takes. So it's much more efficient, much more humane, and much safer from a food safety perspective to produce clean meat. And that is what the talk is about, this new technology that could revolutionize the way that we feed ourselves and help save the planet and a lot of animals in the process.
So, I mean, that is far out science fiction sounding stuff, but it's been here for a while.
Yeah, it sounds like science fiction. You're right, Nathan, but it is indeed now science fact. In fact, I talk in the talk about how I've now eaten this type of meat many times. It is not yet commercially available, but it will be within years, not decades. And so if we are fortunate enough to live a few more years, the chance of each of us getting at least the opportunity to maybe purchase some of this, it's not that unlikely. And that is really going to change things in a pretty dramatic way. Already, we have plant-based meats that are getting much better. These are things like Gardein, Beyond Meat, the Impossible Burger, and so on. These are companies that are making plants and turning them into foods that look and taste like meat. But once we have the opportunity to actually have real meat, not plants, but actual meat that is the same as animal meat, because it is animal meat, it will open up all types of other avenues to sustainably feeding the world with the protein that it wants also. So I'm very bullish on plant-based meats. They're what's available on the market today, and I think that people are going to really enjoy them in the same way that many people really enjoy drinking almond milk or soy milk instead of cow's milk today. In the coming years, more and more people are going to be looking forward to eating meat that is made out of plants rather than animals. But we will have actual meat made from animal cells, and it will be much better for the world.
Well, and Talking Universe, a little personal story here. About 20 years ago, I was jogging around, and it was just I started preferring almond milk, soy milk, some of these other kinds of milk over dairy milk, just because it was I could breathe easier. I won't go into any more depth or detail than that, but I could breathe easier when I jog and all of that stuff. And then I find out later it was actually one of Paul's, not Paul's colleagues, but one of his associates in the broader industry who I interviewed back in episode 103, Bruce Friedrich of the Good Food Institute, who also gave a great talk, who turned me on to that idea and made the analogy that just the same way that I'm perfectly normal and used to drinking non-dairy milk that isn't dairy, we're growing our meat from plants. I was just happy when I talked to Bruce, and when I talked to you, Paul, I'm just happy that you're not trying to convince me to like eat grasshoppers and crickets and stuff like that for my protein. I saw like a documentary about that, and that's going to be the fruit of the future, and it's coming to America, and it just freaked me out. I can't go there yet. What are your thoughts on that? That's a little bit of a gotcha question, but I got to know.
Yeah, well, there are some people who are pursuing that, and there's a lot of humans today who do eat insects. At the same time, I think that many people will have the reaction that you're having, Nathan, and I think that many people are quite pleased.
A very judgmental, intolerant reaction to that idea.
But I think many people are quite pleased to eat meat that comes from peas or comes from soy or comes from wheat. And that is what's on the market now. I mean, you can go to Walmart or any other major supermarket chain and get these very succulent, very delicious plant-based meats that are really good for you. They taste great. They're high in protein. They are low in saturated fat. They have no cholesterol, and they don't involve harming animals in the process. So there's everything that there is to gain from consuming these foods, like the Gardein and Beyond Meat products of the world. And those are great products. They still represent a very small portion of the meat market, but hopefully they will continue to grow in popularity. And hopefully clean meat or real meat grown from animal cells will also come onto the market in the coming years.
Now, we're going to pivot in just a moment, but I got to ask you this question. FDA approval for some of these new meat, what is involved with that? What kind of hurdles do we still have to jump over to get that?
Sure. Well, the plant-based meats are already approved and on the market. For clean meats, though, they have not yet been approved. And the FDA just held its first ever hearing on the topic about a month or two ago. And the USDA and the FDA are having a joint hearing just next week in Washington, D.C. on the method of regulation. I don't want to get too arcane on you, Nathan, with the various agencies, but there's kind of like a food fight at the federal level over what agency will regulate this, because the USDA typically regulates meat, whereas the FDA typically regulates products of cell culture. Well, this is meat from cell culture. So who gets to regulate it? But that's to be determined, but I do suspect there will be some type of a joint regulatory process that will occur. And I do think that because these foods are not only so much better for the planet, but so much safer, that they will be approved. I'll give you just a quick example. Take raw meat. If you go purchase raw meat in the supermarket right now, you are warned to treat that almost like toxic waste. Why? Because it has feces on it. You have to keep it in a different bag in the supermarket. If it touches your counter, you have to disinfect your counter with like Clorox. And it's not like if you have an apple on your counter, you got to do that. And the reason is because there's feces on the meat. E. coli, salmonella, campylobacter. These are intestinal pathogens that can sicken us if we don't cook the crap out of our meat, literally. That's what we're doing, cooking the crap out of the meat. Well, when you're growing clean meat, you don't need to worry so much about those type of intestinal pathogens because you're not growing intestines at all. You're just growing the meat that you want to eat. So there's tremendous food safety benefits to these types of products of what's called cellular agriculture. And that's another reason I think that regulators are going to be eager to help foster this type of innovation rather than stifle it.
Well, this is yet another benefit, Talk Universe. It's going to be a lot easier for me to cook and be at the dinner table because I'm going to get a lot less lectures from other family members that I may or may not be married to about food safety and cleaning and wiping everything down. So, Talk Universe, I hope you're not eating anything right now because we just kind of went there. But we're going to pivot over and ask Paul a few questions about his four TEDx talks. We went pretty deep into the subject matter because this is good stuff. We're going to pivot over there right now. And we are back with the Blitz Round with Paul Shapiro. He has given not one, not two, but 4 TEDx talks. So I am looking forward to this. Paul, are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready, Nathan.
Here's a couple of either-or questions related to the preparation and performance of all of your talks. Here's the first one. Were you invited to speak or did you apply?
I applied.
Surprising to me, but go figure. For all 4, you applied?
That's my recollection. I think maybe one of them I was invited actually,
Okay.
But for most of them I did. That's right.
Wow. Okay. When you prepare, are you a memorizer, improviser, or blender?
Oh, it's a total blend. So what I would like to do is to create an outline, and I always want to start with a story. We talked about the harpoon that comes out. I mean, keep in mind the audience that's there is going to watch you no matter what. But the vast majority of people who see your talk are online. And the easiest thing that you can do when you're watching a video online is to stop watching, just to click off. And so you really need something, in my view, to grab them at the beginning. And so, walking out with the harpoon is one. Another one, I walk out in a hazmat suit and I take it off after about the first minute. Another one,
was it an homage to Devo or something like that, or what?
No, but you'll have to watch it to see.
Oh.
Another one, I smash a painting in the first 30 seconds of the talk. Just something to grab people and be like, "What is this dude doing?" Like something to make people want to continue watching. And so I come up with a concept for the talk. Starts with a story and is something that may be more interesting than someone just simply talking at you. And I will start creating a type of script for it. And I will try to memorize it through repetition, but it's the mastery of that script that allows you to be able to then innovate and deviate from it so that you can improvise and make the points that you're wanting to make without having to go as if you're reading a teleprompter in your mind. And I find like if you are trying to go word for word and you stumble over a word, I mean, it becomes very obvious. And so I don't recommend people memorizing a script, but I do think it's good to write it out just to give you a sense of the type of points that you want to make.
So you are the king of shock value in the first 10 seconds. I guess the harpoon is pretty mild in comparison to smashing a painting or the hazmat suit or whatnot. What was the impact? I mean, in the moment, you smash a painting. Is that, it's kind of, I guess, gratifying as long as the audience has the reaction you expect. Do they always react in the way you expect, or do you get a little surprise at that point? Is that after 4 of these?
I will say with the painting, it actually didn't go as I had anticipated. In fact, I purposefully cut the back of it with a blade to make it easier. But this painting was really durable, man. And it did not go as I had planned. And
so you're sitting there.
If you watch the video, you'll see that I am. I mean, it breaks. It breaks. The point is made, but it is not as dramatic as what I thought was going to be. Pieces everywhere. So, I was too cheap. What I should have done is ordered, 2 of them and tested one out. But I really didn't anticipate that it would be a problem.
All right, Talk Universe, lesson learned for all of us, and it works if you are walking out on the stage for the first time, not used to doing any of these talks. You've got the what we called is when I was teaching learning design, we talked about the learning environment, and then we talked about the performance environment. And this is a perfect example because Paul's in the performance environment and the painting isn't performing the way he thought. Yeah, and then he's doubling down, just smashing this stubborn painting and probably looking a little more off the chain than maybe you intended to. So you recoup from that, and people
it was fine.
Were they looking at you a little funny after that?
No, I think that if you knew what I was intending to do originally, it might have looked a little bit odd. But if you're just in the audience, you have no idea what's about to happen. I don't think they think about it, honestly.
Gotcha. All right. Well, besides the shock value idea, which is a great idea, what's a tip, tool, or technique that helped you?
Well, I don't recommend using slides, to be honest with you, because I think there's a lot of potential for them to go wrong. 2, oftentimes slides, most people I don't think use them very well. I think that they use them as a crutch rather than as something to accentuate what they're doing. Now, I watched a talk just the other day from a guy who was a mountain climber and really accentuated his talk to show photos of him climbing this mountain, these beautiful, breathtaking photos. But most people, they're doing it as a crutch, not to accentuate their talk. And I think that I wouldn't recommend that. But I would think, you want a story. You want to be able to tell a story in your speech, and especially starting out with a story. And it's got to be a story that people will actually be interested in. So that's what I would think about, is what story illustrates the point that you're trying to make. The harpoon is something nobody would forget. They probably saw that day 12 talks maybe. Nobody's going to forget that there was a guy with a harpoon.
Crazy guy walking on stage with a 7-foot harpoon that he had to drive to the talk instead of fly.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Last question for you, Paul. What was the most unexpected, other than trying to smash paintings that don't go as easily. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that ever happened during or before any of your talks?
Well, I think that I probably was thrown off a little bit by seeing a person who spoke before me who completely forgot what she intended to say. And, she just froze and paused and paused and paused. And I felt so bad for her. I mean, I'm sure she had prepared extensively, and she just completely froze. And I hope, I never watched her video online, but I hope that they were able to edit it to make it look better. But, it could have been the best day of her life. And it turned out probably to be, my guess, would be a very bad day for her. And watching that, it really threw me off, because then it's you're like, oh, there, but for the grace of God, go I.
Well, you're the second guest today that told me a variation of that story. So I got to ask you, how did you recoup? How did you go back in and, you had a painting to smash or whatever, a hazmat suit to put on. How did you recoup for that?
It was in my mind. I have to admit, it was really in my mind. And I just, I didn't have any strategy. I just thought I needed to get that out of my head and stop watching this. I loved watching everybody after me, but I do not recommend watching anybody before you.
Well, we've been enjoying this, man. We've been all over the place today with Paul Shapiro. His talk is called Clean Meat, the Clean Energy of Food. You can go to actually his website, cleanmeat.com, and you can go and check out his book at cleanmeatbook.com, Mr. Amazing Domains that Paul has. And you can go to our show notes page at BeTheTalk.com. We're going to have a link to his websites as well as his talk, and you can check out all of that at your leisure, and we'll probably put a link to all of your talks on there so that we can watch the hazmat suit talk, we can watch the smashing painting talk, and the other two as well. And we're going to be right back with Paul Shapiro in just a moment for the 10-second final word of advice. And we're back with Paul Shapiro. It is time for the final word of advice for Talk Universe.
Well, Michelangelo has a quote that has always resonated with me. She said that the problem for most people is not that they set their mark too high and miss it. So they set their mark too low and they hit it. And many people may think, in fact, I was listening to Monica's interview before, and she was saying she never perceived herself as being somebody who would be up on stage like that. But how you perceive yourself is often what you're going to end up actualizing. And so if you perceive yourself as somebody who would be delivering a TEDx talk on stage, then make it happen. And I just think that the barriers for many of us are in our minds rather than real. And we can each achieve much more than we believe that we can.
Well, Paul Shapiro, thank you so much for carving out time in your schedule to be on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
It's my honor, Nathan. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's a wrap. And my audio guy hopefully will edit out that that clunk.
Oh, no. Was there a clunk? I didn't hear it.
There was some kind of weird bump right after you ended. So
really? Okay.
He gets that.
Okay.
Lester, you better get that, buddy. This isn't rolling anymore. He's not going to see the broadcast, but
that's really funny. So I just sent you another website, actually.
Okay.
That's helpful. That has all four of them on there.
Oh, cool. Well, great. Yeah. Very good. Advice for Molly. Molly is last on our docket here today.
Last but not least.
Yeah, not least at all.
Molly, you're gonna rock. You've already done your speech. That's far greater stress than this will be. I promise you.
Yeah, I just got on an airplane at 4:00 this morning, so I'm a little. Okay, I can do this. It's okay. I just ate some frozen chocolate chip cookie dough, so I'm so good.
Very good.
Well, we'll have you in and out here. No worries, and congratulations for being able to make it. There are a lot of times I miss people when travel related stuff. So awesome.
We did it.
Awesome. All right,
Great.
Paul, I'm going to walk you over to the green room. Hope you can stick around, but if you can't, I understand. And man, great interviews. Molly, we are going to zip right in here.
Perfect.
Let's see. LinkedIn profile, no website, just LinkedIn. So I'll point people there.
Globalautismproject.org is
Oh, sorry again.
globalautismproject.org.
Okay. Global Autism Project.org.
My organization.
That's your organ. So that points back to you.
Oh, sorry.
That points back to you.
It's my organization.
Okay.
There's no
Very
Molly
good.
Ola Pinney. There is, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
Is this okay? This background?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sitting on the floor in front of my bedroom door.
Well, now that we know it actually compresses everything, so you look fine.
Good to know. Okay.
You look fine. So
we're live right now. Is this people's first meeting of me? Great.
Yeah, we're on Facebook Live. So this is part of the behind the behind the scenes.
Oh, this is very behind the scenes.
Yeah, this is the broadcast, and then I'm gonna hit this button, and then it's gonna be podcasting time. So the downside is that I try to make it clear how it is, and sometimes it's a little hard to get. The good side is everybody that shares this, we got 4 times the sharing power. So again, Molly's Fan Club, time to share. You just heard about clean meat. We talked about being an actor. We talked about meditation and mindfulness. Good stuff. And I'm seeing a couple extra chats. Oh, from Paul. Thank you. I got to remember to scrape that before I close out this link. All right, Molly, here is your bio. Molly Ola Pinney is the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project, a nonprofit organization that increases the capacity of local individuals working with children with autism worldwide. Under her leadership, the organization is well on its way to achieving, and then it cut off. So what do you remember what the rest of that was? I'm sorry. I'm just seeing this now. To
achieving our goal of working with 20 centers worldwide by 2020.
Aha. With 20 centers worldwide by 2020. Okay. And I put it 0202 because
that's fine. Yeah.
No, 2020. And then I did it again. Do I have sticky keys? I don't know. The talk is called Doing Things for Others Doesn't Help. And then, we're ready to rock. Any questions for me?
No, especially since I'm already live.
All right.
This is real life.
It's real life. And it's all good. If you can give me a 5 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right. We're ready to rock. In 3, 2. We are live with Molly Ola Pinney.
Okay.
Molly, are you ready to talk?
I'm ready to talk. Born ready.
Molly Ola Pinney is the founder and CEO of the Global Autism Project, a nonprofit organization that increases the capacity of local individuals working with children with autism worldwide. Under Molly's leadership, the organization is well on its way to its goal of working with 20 centers worldwide by 2020. Molly Ola Pinney, welcome to the talk.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
So your talk is called Doing Things for Others Doesn't Help. And in your talk, you talk about how all these, really a very similar experience that I've had doing a little bit of humanitarian work overseas. You talk about being raw, getting ready to go out there. And there are empty schools and there's all kinds of resources and they're not being used. And basically, it's because the people that went in there, the NGOs, are not being partnership minded. They're being rescue minded. My words, not yours. And basically, it's not really working when we go in there without having a mind to partner and really do things with people. So please take us behind the talk.
Yeah. So do you want me to talk more about the talk now, or
well, whatever you'd like to talk about? But I've got to ask you this. There's a brilliant. It's kind of it's a little scathing, but there's some kind of a Barbie Instagram account that talks about this very thing. So crazy rescue Barbie, and if you watch this Instagram, man, it's going to make you feel a little cringy. But take us behind the talk.
Yeah, awesome. So a little bit about the talk. Yeah, let's see. So the premise of the talk, as you said, is to do things with people rather than for people. And the simple idea that when we do things for people, we remove their agency, we remove their ability, to make their own decisions even. And, I learned this. I started my organization, the Global Autism Project, before I had actually finished my undergrad in college. So I had this sort of crash course in life and learning and humanitarianism and NGO work and sustainability. And then went back to college at Columbia University, was reading all about what I had just experienced and realized it just really kind of stuck with me. And like, no amount of reading about anything, of wanting to do things for others, is going to teach you what you can learn when you commit to doing things with others. A little bit of background on the organization is I started the organization because people were looking for me to work with their children with autism. I realized that there was an autism center locally already in town, went on the internet and was looking for people who could come to Ghana and train us, and found it didn't exist. So at the, very ambitious stage of my life that one is at 23, I thought, well, start in Ghana and go all over the world. How hard could it be?
How hard could it be?
I am here to tell you 15 years later, it can be incredibly challenging and you'll want to give up. So the talk was really an exciting opportunity to sort of distill down, it had about 19,000 other titles. I gave the talk on Saturday, 11/11. I remember that, November 11th. And I thought about the talk for a couple of weeks at least. I found out relatively last minute I was doing the talk, which I felt like was a good thing.
Yeah, a good thing.
I thought it was a good thing because when I think about talks and art and writing, is that it takes as much time as you give it. So had I known for 6 months I was going to do this talk, I could have potentially spent 6 months on it.
Yeah,
I didn't have 6 months to spend on it, so it worked out great. So I found out, as I said, relatively last minute. By Wednesday, the week before, I batted around a lot of ideas. I couldn't quite. I was like 4 words or less, 4 words or less. And that's where the do with not for came from, the do with not for hashtag that we're starting to use a bit more. I'm seeing it. It's funny. I'm seeing it more and more. And it was, let's see. So I can take you behind the talk. There were a couple of us on my team and me sitting on the floor next to a whiteboard. And I had this really cool sort of diagram that was sort of like the problem, the story, the solution, it was sort of like the arc of the talk. And I was like, all right, how hard can it be? Right? Like, how hard can this be? People do these all the time, right? So,
and I gotta jump in here. And for some reason, I'm getting a little bit of feedback all of a sudden. So I apologize, everybody, for that. But this talk that you gave, you said it was 11/11. Whatever just happened, perhaps just fixed whatever that was. So thank you, my audio editor. Thanks you if you did anything. You said 11/11. Now, folks listening, Talk Universe, very few people had even known what a TED Talk or a TEDx talk was in 2011. This was 7 years ago.
November 11th.
Oh, November 11th. Oh, 11/11. Okay.
Yeah, 11/11, 2017.
2017. Okay. Well, okay. Don't edit that out, Lester, because I make mistakes. But
good.
Just in case, it's all good. So thank you for placing that in there. Let's see if I'd love to hear your thoughts on just because a lot of people listening to this, they do governmental work, they do humanitarian work. I'm always my spouse is in healthcare, so I'm always a little bit of the hostage, and I get to go around and to kind of do the leadership stuff and the coaching stuff and the soft skills stuff. And she's in, most recently we were in a red light district, and she was, consulting the specialists there, helping to slow the diseases and all of this. Ghana is, I believe, more in Western Africa. I was in East Africa doing some things. Just if you can just kind of paint the picture to Talk Universe of anybody who hasn't had the opportunity, really the honor and the privilege to go to a developing country, a country under development, and come up with these dynamics. How much of a shock of it was it to you, doing with, not for, and making that change in your mind? You've already kind of told us the story, but what was the shock like, and maybe the humility or whatever you would call it, to change the mindset? Because many of us, kind of privileged Westerners, we're kind of getting our mind around it right now, but I don't know that we've completely got it. So if you can speak to that, I think that would be really, really helpful, Molly.
Yeah, absolutely. So I talked a little bit in the talk about how I'd be driven around. First of all, I moved there to work privately with one kid with autism, with one family, for a couple of months. I stayed for 2 years. Well, I was going to be there for almost a year. I stayed for 2 years because, again, people started showing up in my house. And when I first got there, there were, is your audio okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Am I yelling in your ears?
No, we're fine.
Okay. So I stayed for 2 years. When I first got there, I'd be driven around, riding in the car, and they'd say, oh, an NGO did that, an NGO did that. And again, I talk about it a little bit in the talk, but what I would see is dilapidated school buildings. What I would see is an SUV that looks totally out of place, all kinds of really kind of just out of place, awkward things. And they would say an NGO did that. So I had decided essentially that there was a local spelling for NGO, NDZIO, and that it meant terrible, basically a terrible person. And I later learned that NGO is an acronym, NGO, non-governmental organization. And I was really just kind of blown away by what I saw. And there were a lot of moments, and there have been over 15 years working in many countries now. There are a lot of moments of just humility, for sure. That's the only way we get anything done, basically. But it was abundantly clear to me that I was not the best person to teach kids with autism when I realized that I didn't even know how to eat the local food. I was like, I don't even know how to eat this. Like this, and then, there have been other moments. We were working in Indonesia. I remember we were going to do toilet training, and we realized we don't even know how to use the local toilets, So there's those sort of very tangible moments and reasons that you say, like, oh, you guys know best. And I love those moments, especially from my role as CEO of the organization, because they really stand out for us. But they also are just indicative of all these less tangible moments where there are nuances to every culture. There are nuances to how we respond to people from different cultures, from the same culture, etc. So all of this just says to me the best people to do the work are the local people on the ground. And I think you're right. When you go to other countries, you do see NGOs and people who make no mistake. You have to believe, at least I have to believe, that they mean well, that they're there to do things for others because they want to help. Right. And I say in the talk again that helping is good. We're all socialized to learn that one should help others. And so, in my talk, I sort of challenge, if you're doing things for others, you're not helping them, you're potentially even hurting them.
Mm-hmm. So, and if you're doing too much for others, you're not helping them at all. I'm starting to get that feedback again, so I don't know what is going on, but you'll figure. I'm sure you're not doing anything and there it went away. So this is the kind of day that that I've had. It's interesting because sometimes the desire, like these NGOs, they come in the rah, and we're going to rescue and we're going to give and we're going to sacrifice. And that's almost as bad or possibly equally as bad just on the other ditch on the other side of the road. And that partnership attitude and really recognizing the dignity of people by realizing that they know how these customs work and they have skills and abilities that can really keep us on the straight and narrow. Doing too much or helping too much and being too generous. Powerful thing. Any thoughts on that as we pivot over?
Well, I think there's, when we travel and we do have autism professionals who travel with us, and we create sort of this Venn diagram that says their priorities, our priorities, and then in the third circle is sustainability. So knowing that, yes, we have things that are valuable to offer. Also, they have things that are valuable to offer. Also, if what we're trying to do is not sustainable, don't do it at all. And maybe it's not sustainable because they don't have a printer to print the worksheets that we're creating. Maybe it's not sustainable, because no one's actually going to do that on a Saturday in this country or whatever it is, So I think, that's sort of my thoughts on that.
Well, great. We've been enjoying this discussion with Molly Ola Pinney. Her talk is called Doing Things for Others Doesn't Help. And we're going to pivot right over to the Blitz round in just a moment.
Okay. Sure.
And it's time for the Blitz round with Molly Ola Pinney. I'm about to ask her a series of questions, either or questions related to the preparation and the performance of her talk. Molly, are you ready?
I'm ready.
First question, were you invited to speak or did you apply?
Both.
You already answered it, actually.
Yeah.
And they gave you a very short amount of time, which you actually appreciated.
I sure did. Yeah.
Well, and you look like a hero coming through on a limited amount of time. So that's a nice additional benefit. Were you a memorizer, an improviser, or a blender, Molly?
Not a memorizer. I had 5 slides that were kind of my pivot points. So each slide was kind of a reminder of what I was wanting to talk about next.
Okay.
The slides didn't work, by the way. That's just a fun behind the scenes. Yeah, they didn't work at all. So
I was in an event the other day and a TEDx event, and I think we had about a 40 to 60% fail rate on the clickers.
Yeah.
And it was pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Molly, what's a tip tool and technique? What's a tip tool or technique that helped you prepare?
I have unconventional advice, right? That's like squish down the amount of time you're going to spend on it because it's going to be as time as you give it.
Yeah.
And you're never going to feel like you're done. You really aren't. You're just how it works,
Yeah. Well, unconventional is good, especially if you're wired in a certain way. Like myself, a recovering perfectionist. And what is it? Parkinson's law. It says that a project is going to fill up all the time that you put. So if it's a year in advance, you're going to be doing a lot extra work. So that makes perfect sense to me.
Talking in the back of your mind,
What's that?
Even if it's just in the back of your mind, you're going, oh, right.
It's on your mind.
Yeah.
It crows a little bit every single day. Talk Universe, for those of you that are perfectionists or in recovery, as I still am. Hello, my name is Nathan. I'm still in recovery for perfectionism. I think this makes a lot of sense. That's why we have this Blitz round for you. Molly, this is the cut for time question. What was the most painful part of your talk that you had to cut out?
I had tried to work in something about how I was really surprised when I got in the country to see kids in clean clothes, basically, and it just did not work. It did not fit. It did not work. I wasn't actually surprised to see them in clean clothes, but and then when we share pictures of our work and the kids are wearing clean clothes, people are like totally shocked it's Africa, and I felt like. Or developing country at all. And I felt like that was relevant, but I just couldn't figure out how to get it in there. So,
well, that's a hard thing to mention without sounding like the Instagram savior Barbie piece. That's the kind of stuff. I can't remember the name of this, but she posted the other day and it just, the burn just sizzles more and more every time they do this. If you want to know what we're talking about, hopefully I'll have a link in there. My editor will remind me to, what was that Instagram link? I'll look it up and we'll.
Barbie, actually, it's something
what was
like that? I don't remember what it is. It's something like White Savior Barbie or
White Savior Barbie. That's kind of the idea.
Like they're so glad, they're so lucky I'm here. Like,
yes.
Oh, okay, no.
And she's selfieing herself and look how great it is. And here's my GoFundMe and it's my birthday, so donate. And all of the stuff. Oh, it's awful. First world. It's the ultimate first world problem watching that Instagram account because it hurts. Because it hurts because it's real and it's true.
For our volunteers,
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, our volunteers are always totally shocked. They're going to go to, nice, well-equipped, well-trained, staffed autism centers. And there's in Africa? Like, yeah, you are, So, yeah.
Molly, my last question to you. What was the most unexpected, strange, or just plain weird thing that happened during or right before your talk?
So right before my talk, I realized that I had switched my bag at the last minute and I hadn't put my necklace in the new bag, and I was upset about that. And so I sort of just decided, I can't, never mind, and then I went up to the stage and they said, oh, do you want to rehearse? And I was like, absolutely not. I've done a lot of talking in my life. The last thing I want to do is rehearse. And I got to the stage, and the guy who spoke before me was amazing. He gave an amazing talk, and he's standing on stage, he's going, Mokta! I literally remember that. And it was so kind of like rehearsed and dramatic, but beautiful. I mean, I listened to his talk. He like stood himself up all straight, like lining up his voice or something. I don't even know. And I was like, whoa, like wrong person, wrong. I have a general idea of what I'm going to say. I actually don't totally know. I have absolutely not rehearsed this thing from head to tail. So I saw that and I said, I've got to leave. I can't do this. And I was talked back into walking onto the stage.
They talked you down. Wow.
Yeah.
What did they say?
Yeah, it was sort of like, okay, and I was like, what if I totally mess it up? And I decided if I totally mess it up, I just won't share it on the internet. There's gonna be like 1,000 people here today. You talked to people earlier today who said they're with people who totally messed it up. All people remember is someone, they don't say, oh, this was her name and this was her talk and she totally messed it up. It's like they go, she totally messed it up. I don't know what happened to her.
Good point. We won't remember, folks.
Yeah, like if it's a total bust, no one's gonna say anything. And so I sort of decided, like, what's the worst that can happen? I'll have to do another one that's shareable. And it came out okay. It really did. So
Molly Ola Pinney, everyone. We've been enjoying this amazing conversation with her. She's the head of the Global Autism Project. That is actually her website, globalautismproject.org. We're going to have a link in the show notes page at BeTheTalk.com to the Global Autism Project.org, and as well as to her talk, which is called Doing Things for Others Doesn't Help. I love that. Do with, not for, is kind of the foreword, not the foreword to a book, but the foreword micro slogan, which is very, very memorable. And we're also going to put that Instagram Barbie account in the show notes.
Because that's not me.
People are going to be asking comments, and I don't want to frustrate the people. So my audio engineer is going to remind me, and we're going to put that in the show notes. And we're going to be back with Molly Ola Pinney in just a moment for the final word of advice. And we're back with the final word of advice for Talk Universe from Molly Ola Pinney.
Yes, we are. I would say that at the end of the day, after I gave my talk, my overwhelming feeling was that everybody has something to say. Every person has something to say. And I think it's easy to think I only have something to say if I'm accomplished or I've done great things in my life, or, and I think some of the best talks I heard that day were people who had, seemingly ordinary lives. And I think that, trust that you have something to say and listen to that little voice that does share your message, because it's there for everyone, I think.
Well, Molly, Ola Pinney, thank you so much for carving out time in your busy travel schedule to be on the talk today and sharing your wisdom with Talk Universe.
Thank you so much. Have an amazing day.
All right, that's a wrap.
I'm still live, right?
You're still live, and yeah, let's share the message.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it on Facebook, but we'll do it after it.
Yeah, I'm gonna tag you in a comment so that you've got that like right away. And thank you for trying to do that. I apologize for not having that very obvious functionality.
This was on my calendar as a podcast, so I didn't even know that we were.
It's a podcast that we just it's the podcast is on here, and then we got the broadcast. What it really does, and if you're watching this still, what this does is this allows you, Molly's fan club, or those who are affiliated with the Global Autism Project, if anyone who this is, touching the life of, you can now watch this now, as opposed to having to wait 7 or 8 weeks for the podcast to drop. And that's part of the reason why I do this. So share it, comment, spread the idea. And with that, we're going to actually end the broadcast, and I'll hang here just for a moment to talk offline. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.